Okay, but imagine sitting in your living room trying to string a single cohesive thought together, and suddenly, out of nowhere, the sound of somebody violently hitting a milk bottle with a ball-peen hammer just shatters inside your head.
You can't take the earpiece out. You can't, turn the volume down. It is physically locked onto your ear.
Wired into your literal life by the federal government.
Yeah, exactly.
We are just dropping straight into the brutal, utterly jarring reality of the year 2081 here. The whole premise of this world is that humanity has finally achieved total equality. And not just, equal before the law or equal in opportunity.
Right. They mean equal every which way.
Every which way. Nobody is smarter. Nobody is better looking. Nobody is stronger or quicker than anybody else.
Which, the underlying philosophy sounds like a utopian ideal, right? Until you examine the actual mechanics of achieving it.
Yeah, the physical toll.
Because you cannot artificially raise an entire population up to the level of, a genius or a world-class athlete.
Yeah.
The only mathematical way to make everyone equal in every conceivable metric is to drag the exceptional people down to the lowest common denominator.
And the visceral physical details of how they accomplish that are just baffling. I cannot stop thinking about George Bergeron.
Oh, George, yeah.
He's a man whose natural intelligence happens to be way above normal. So to fix that quote-unquote problem, the government forces him to wear this mental handicap radio.
Tuned to a government transmitter.
Right. And every 20 seconds or so, it blasts a sharp noise to essentially scatter his thoughts, keeping him from taking unfair advantage of his own brain.
And the variety of the torture is highly specific, too. It's designed to disrupt different frequencies of thought, I guess, because beyond the milk bottle and the ball-peen hammer, his brain gets blasted by a 21-gun salute.
Jesus.
A literal siren goes off inside his skull. Every 20 seconds, his internal monologue is just derailed in the most violent auditory way possible.
Put yourself in that exact headspace for a moment. Think about trying to do some deep, focused work. Writing a complex email, doing your taxes, or even just trying to hold on to a daydream while a literal fire alarm goes off right next to your head every 20 seconds.
But it's mandated by law.
Mandated by law.
It is the systemic eradication of the internal self. George is legally prohibited from having a continuous stream of consciousness. And, the contrast with his wife, Hazel, really highlights the terrifying baseline of this society.
Hazel is such a crucial piece of this puzzle. She has what the text calls a perfectly average intelligence.
Right, which in 2081 means she doesn't require a mental handicap radio at all.
She can only think about things in short, disconnected bursts anyway.
Exactly. She cannot hold a complex thought long enough for it to become dangerous. And the detail that perfectly grounds her character is her strong physical resemblance to the handicapper general, Diana Moon Glampers.
Yes.
Hazel is the ideal citizen. She requires zero state modification to be completely mediocre.
And when George winces because the milk bottle sound just went off in his head, Hazel's reaction is incredibly telling. She actually asks him what the sound was, and when he tells her...
She's not horrified at all.
She's jealous. She literally thinks it's...
like a fun little radio station in his head.
Yeah, she says, I think it'll be real interesting hearing all the different sounds. She is completely oblivious to the absolute agony her husband is experiencing. She even suggests that if she were the handicapper general, she would play chimes on Sundays.
Just to be nice.
Just to be nice. And George, in this heartbreaking moment of clarity between the sirens, replies, I could think if it was just chimes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And, well, the tragedy of that interaction transitions us perfectly from the mental blocks to the immense physical burdens of this society.
Yeah.
Because the mental handicap is just the first layer of oppression, right? Enforced by the 211th, 212th, and 213th Amendments.
Right.
If you possess any physical strength, you are legally required to carry the weight of that strength.
So George isn't just dealing with the ear radio. He is wearing a canvas bag filled with 47 pounds of birdshot, padlocked around his neck.
47 pounds.
47 pounds of dead weight hanging off his cervical spine every single day of his life.
And he wears it in his own living room while sitting on the couch just trying to watch television. And the people on the television are enduring the exact same torment.
It's so messed up.
George and Hazel are watching a ballet, but the ballerinas are burdened with sash weights and bags of birdshot. They're also wearing masks.
The masks are such a crazy detail.
The government has mandated that no one watching should ever see a graceful gesture or a pretty face and feel a pang of inadequacy. So the state has taken ballerinas, the universal symbol of physical grace, and forced them to be clunky and hidden.
It is the complete weaponization of human insecurity. The government has decided that the discomfort of feeling inadequate is a far worse crime than state-sanctioned physical torture. And George is visibly exhausted. He is worn out from carrying almost 50 extra pounds on his neck. Hazel, in a rare, fleeting moment of empathy, suggests that maybe he could just make a little hole in the bottom of the canvas bag.
Just take out a few of those lead balls while he's at home resting.
Right. But the penalty for doing so is staggering. George explains that it is 2 years in prison and a $2,000 fine for every single ball taken out.
The state is terrified of even a fraction of an ounce of unearned relief.
Wait, I have to push back here, though. Because I struggle to believe that a highly intelligent guy like George just accepts this.
You'd think he'd fight it.
Right. He has an above-average IQ. Why wouldn't someone with his brains figure out a way to cheat the system? He's sitting in his own home. He could temporarily bypass the lock or find a loophole, but instead he actively defends the 47 pounds of metal padlock to his own neck.
He really does.
He tells Hazel that if people started cheating, society would fall apart and go back to the dark ages of competition. Like, think about that. How does a smart man rationalize his own torture?
Because he is trapped in a profound societal Stockholm syndrome. The ideological conditioning of this world is absolute. The government hasn't just physically handicapped George. They have successfully equated any form of excellence, natural talent, or competition with the collapse of civilization.
So he actually believes it.
The Dark Ages propaganda is so deeply ingrained that George fears his own potential. He genuinely believes that his intelligence is a destructive force. He thinks his suffering is the glue holding their peaceful society together.
They have convinced the victims to become their own jailers.
Exactly.
And the ultimate proof of how unsustainable this structure is happens when the state tries to communicate with its own citizens. Right in the middle of this ballet, the program is interrupted by a news bulletin.
Now, you expect a news bulletin in an authoritarian regime to be delivered by a crisp, clear, authoritative voice, right?
You do. But the announcer who appears on screen has a severe speech impediment. He cannot even articulate the words, "Ladies and gentlemen."
He struggles in a state of high excitement for half a minute before he simply gives up.
And Hazel's reaction perfectly encapsulates the cultural rot here. She praises him.
Of course she does.
She says, he tried to do the best he could with what God gave him. He should get a nice raise for trying so hard. It is the participation trophy culture taken to its militant extreme.
The actual function of the broadcast, delivering critical, life-saving information to the public, is entirely secondary. The outcome does not matter. The only metric of value is the effort expended and the assurance that the announcer doesn't feel inferior for failing at his job.
So the announcer gives up and hands the bulletin to one of the ballerinas to read. And we get this incredible illuminating detail about her. She must have been extraordinarily beautiful because her government-mandated mask is hideous.
And she must be incredibly strong and graceful because her handicap bags are the size of those worn by 200-pound men.
Right. And when she begins to speak, her natural voice is a warm, luminous, timeless melody.
But the moment she uses that voice, she commits a crime. It is an unfair voice.
She actually stops and apologizes for how beautiful her voice sounds. She physically alters her vocal cords and begins again in what is described as a grackle squawk.
An awful, uncompetitive screech.
Yeah. And through that screech, she delivers the news. Harrison Burgeron has escaped from jail.
Harrison is George and Hazel's son. He is 14 years old, exactly 7 feet tall, and was arrested on suspicion of plotting to overthrow the government.
The government's obsession with suppressing talent creates a terrifying paradox here, because the harder you compress a spring, the more violent the eventual release.
Good, absolutely.
Instead of finding a way to integrate or harness this kid's unbelievable physical and mental gifts, they turned a 14-year-old boy into a walking hardware store and a Halloween monster.
The text describes him as a walking junkyard in the race of life. I mean, he has outgrown handicaps faster than the handicapper general's men can invent them.
Which is saying something.
He doesn't just wear a little ear radio like his father. He wears tremendous earphones. He is forced to wear spectacles with thick, wavy lenses, designed not only to make him half blind, but to give him constant, ranging headaches.
Yeah.
And he is carrying 300 pounds of scrap metal on his body.
And they didn't stop at his physical strength or his intelligence. They actively attacked his aesthetic humanity. He is a good-looking kid, so they force him to wear a red rubber ball for a nose.
A clown nose.
Literally. They shaved off his eyebrows. They made him cover his even, white teeth with black caps placed at snaggletooth random. This isn't about creating a level playing field anymore. This is aesthetic degradation.
They're just mocking him.
The government is actively trying to humiliate him, which proves the system is driven by pure resentment, not fairness.
Because they are terrified of him. The ballerina literally issues a warning on the broadcast. Do not try to reason with him. But consider the strategic failure of their approach here.
What do you mean?
They haven't made him equal to anyone else. They've strapped 300 pounds of heavy metal to a 7-foot-tall, 14-year-old genius who is now fueled by constant physical pain and societal rejection. You are not neutralizing a threat at that point. You're building a highly pressurized bomb.
And that bomb detonates on live television.
Yes, it does.
There is the shriek of a door being torn entirely from its hinges. The photograph of Harrison on the screen jumps like an earthquake, and George, sitting in his living room, actually recognizes the sound of that earthquake because Harrison has crashed around their own house so many times.
George has this momentary flash of parental recognition.
Yeah.
He says, "My God, that must be Harrison."
But instantly, the realization is blasted from his mind by the sound of an automobile collision in his head radio. His connection to his own child is stolen from him.
Is gone.
Meanwhile, on the screen, a living, breathing Harrison Burgeron fills the frame, holding the knob of the uproot the studio door. The ballerinas, the technicians, the musicians, the announcers, they all just cower on their knees before him.
And Harrison doesn't declare a revolution of equality. He doesn't declare a democracy. He declares himself the emperor. He says, "Even as I stand here, crippled, hobbled, sickened, I am a greater ruler than any man who ever lived."
This is a crucial philosophical turn. The author isn't just warning us about the dangers of extreme forced equality. He's also showing us that extreme talent, when completely unmoored from societal constraints and fueled by years of torture, doesn't establish a utopia either.
Right. Harrison immediately establishes a dictatorship of the exceptional. He declares himself a ruler and prepares to demonstrate exactly what that means.
And the physical feat that follows is almost mythological. Harrison grabs the straps of his handicap harness, a harness guaranteed to support 5,000 pounds, and tears it off like wet tissue paper.
Like it's nothing.
He takes his thumbs, puts them under the heavy bar of the padlock securing his head harness, and snaps the solid metal bar like celery.
Wait, like so?
It's like celery. He smashes the headphones, he smashes the spectacles, he throws away the clown nose, and suddenly he stands there, this towering god of thunder, completely unburdened for the first time in his life.
I get chills just thinking about it.
He looks down at the cowering crowd and announces he will now select his empress. He says, "Let the first woman who dares rise to her feet claim her mate and her throne."
And a single ballerina stands up, swaying like a willow. Harrison goes to her. He plucks the mental handicap from her ear, and he strips off her physical handicaps with marvelous delicacy. He removes her hideous mask, revealing blinding beauty.
And then he commands the musicians to play their best, promising to elevate them to barons and dukes.
But the musicians initially play exactly as they've been trained to in this society, right? Cheap, silly, false. It's the standard, inoffensive noise of 2081.
But Harrison refuses to accept mediocrity. He snatches two musicians out of their chairs, waves them in the air like batons as he sings the melody exactly how it should be played, and slams them back into their seats.
And when they play again, the music is vastly improved. It is real art. Harrison and his empress listen. They synchronize their heartbeats to the rhythm, and then they dance.
They abandon the laws of the land, and then they completely abandon the laws of physics. They are literally floating inches below the ceiling, just fucking suspended in the air by love and pure will. It is entirely insane.
They literally jump 30 feet.
The ceiling is 30 feet high, and they leap like deer on the moon. They keep ascending until they kiss the ceiling, and they just stay there, suspended in a cinematic, breathtaking explosion of joy and grace.
It is the ultimate act of rebellion. In a world where a graceful gesture is a crime, they have completely untethered themselves from the oppressive reality of their society. They have ascended into pure, unadulterated excellence.
But in a society structured around absolute compliance, unashamed excellence is a capital offense. The crash back to reality is instantaneous and brutal.
So brutal.
While they are suspended up there, kissing each other, Diana Moon Glampers, the handicapper general herself, walks into the television studio.
And she doesn't deliver a villainous monologue. She doesn't read them their rights or hold a trial. She simply walks in with a double-barreled 10-gauge shotgun.
She fires twice. The emperor and the empress are dead before they hit the floor. The beautiful, impossible dance is over in a fraction of a second. It is a cold, bureaucratic slaughter.
Just unbelievable.
She casually reloads the shotgun, points it directly at the musicians, and gives them 10 seconds to get their handicaps back on.
The terrifying part is the sheer efficiency of it. The system corrects itself in a matter of seconds. The threat is eliminated, the fear is reinstated, and exactly at that moment, the television tube in George and Hazel's living room burns out.
The screen goes black.
The screen just goes black.
You know, you would think the climax of the horror is the shotgun blast. You would think the peak of the tragedy is the murder of a 14-year-old boy on live television. I push back on that completely.
Really?
Yes, because the physical violence isn't the most chilling part of this narrative. The true horror is the conversation that takes place in the living room immediately afterward.
Because George missed the execution.
Right.
He had walked into the kitchen to get a can of beer. He walks back into the living room, pauses while another handicap signal violently shakes him up, and sits back down on the couch. He looks over and sees that Hazel has been crying.
He asks her what she's crying about, and she replies, I forget, something real sad on television. She just watched her own flesh and blood get blown out of the sky with a shotgun, and her perfectly average intelligence has already deleted the trauma.
She says it's all just kind of mixed up in her mind.
And George, her husband, the father of the boy who was just murdered, tells her, forget sad things.
Forget sad things.
Forget sad things, she responds, I always do. It is horrific. And right at that exact second, George winces because the sound of a riveting gun blasts through his brain. A literal riveting gun, wiping out whatever subconscious grief, whatever lingering memory or instinctual pain he might have been holding on to.
The government lobotomizes his reaction to his own son's murder in real time.
Yes, they are completely isolated from their own humanity.
They don't have the capacity to mourn. They don't even have the capacity to remember why they should be mourning. The physical mechanisms of suppression have robbed them of the most basic human emotional responses.
And they end the conversation with this absolutely hollow, empty exchange. Hazel says, gee, I could tell that one was a doozy. She's talking about the noise that just went off in George's head.
Right.
George agrees. He says, you can say that again. So she repeats it verbatim. Gee, I could tell that one was a doozy.
That specific phrase, that was a doozy.
Yeah.
It perfectly encapsulates the trivialization of tragedy in this world. Everything, no matter how profound or horrific, is reduced to a fleeting distraction. And, if we pull this concept out of 2081 and connect it to the broader human condition, it leaves us with a deeply unsettling reality to confront.
Excellent.
When a society becomes completely obsessed with total comfort, when the ultimate goal is the absolute eradication of anyone ever feeling inadequate, insecure, or challenged, well, what kind of atrocities, what kind of doozies are we willing to passively watch, immediately forget, and just walk away from?